I'm not a doctor, I'm not an Olympian, all the other cool stuff. So if you're going to get something awesome like that, maybe go grab a second lunch or something. But what I think, if I do have a superpower, it's taking experiences from extraordinary people and hopefully giving back those experiences to them. And for some reason, I was able to make some decent decisions in my life off of what I've learned from everyone that I get to work with. And I'm super blessed because I get to work with so many of our clients in professional sports, college sports, elite military, actors, artists, things like that. I get to pull from a lot of different sources. So what we're going to talk about today is being legendary. And our tagline at Sorinex is Be Legendary. I'm not trying to say I'm legendary in any amount. I'm just showing some of the things that I've found through stories and experiences in my life that I found extraordinary, legendary, and helpful as I went through my voyage, and I continue to do so. So, without further ado, let me stop babbling. Be legendary, living an impactful life. That's my title. See, I actually did a PowerPoint. So a lot of you guys did it earlier on in your life, and I never did, so I'm just learning. Okay, what is legendary? Well, we're trying to define it here, and these actually are two definitions. Remarkable enough to be widely known. Someone said remarkable enough to be famous. Well, I don't know if that's really my deal. I kind of see it, are you relevant when you're not in the room? When you walk away, say if you're a coach, do your athletes notice when you're not there? Does your family notice when you're there or when you're not there? Do you have basically, are you impactful enough to leave a mark on someone else's life? And I know John and the group asked me to speak about kind of building a brand and building Sorinex, but the main thing of that was building a culture because everything else after that is a product or a service and profit and loss and all that other stuff that I really don't understand. If you want to know margins and gross margins and all that fun stuff, I got a guy that does that. So we're going to kind of talk about this other stuff. Business or brand. Thing to realize is profitability doesn't necessarily mean legendary or vice versa. It helps, but just to be profitable or just to have money doesn't really. It gives you an opportunity to be impactful on others' lives, but you don't. That's not a prerequisite. Some people I know that have very, very little in life financially make some of the biggest impacts in life, and you have to decide which route you want to go. Sorinex is our business. I guess when I walk in front of this, it kind of gets in front. Oh, we're good. So it's been our business, but it's really been an extension of my life and my father's life. He started Sorinex as it's actually Sorin equipment. It was in 1980. Started in our garage, and the whole purpose of it was exercise equipment in the world that he could find wasn't as good as what he needed as a strength athlete himself. It either wasn't strong enough, it wasn't adjustable enough. It just wasn't good enough. So there was a need. An innovation was put towards that need. And Sorinex just kind of became the business extension of the Sorin family. So part of that is a terrible business move because it doesn't give you an out. They say never put your name on your business because you can't ever sell it or walk away from it because it bespeaks your person. And they're right. And sometimes Sorinex is a hot air balloon, and sometimes it's an anchor, pulling from what Adam Nelson said today. And my goal is to keep it being a machine to help those around me. And because it's part of us, what we do, how we do anything is how you got to do everything. I know you've heard that, but it's tying it in, the business into my life. It's what you end up with, and the responsibility is pretty heavy. So I'm going to go through 10 things, tenets or goals that I go through for a legendary life or building a legendary business or a brand. Number one is be authentic. Be a better version of you. I know everyone's heard this. Be yourself. Everyone else has already taken. Oscar Wilde's a great quote. Although it's so simple, I think so many people miss this, especially in today's social media world. They're trying to be this, I'm the so-and-so, this WWE character, and that's great to create that branding piece, but you have to be authentic to who you are, or you're going to miss the mark completely, and one day you'll end up 20 miles down this road that you don't even know what exit you got off on. The mirror. So one of my managers that used to work for me, he did a brilliant thing. He used to carry a small pocket mirror in his pocket, just right there. And when another, let's say a paint color was wrong, or it went to the wrong shipping address, or something happened in the shop, or a quote was wrong, something, he would, of course, get on the employee. Hey, you messed up this is whatever. We need to do this. And if they started bitching, immediately he just held up. He's like, "Here's your answer," and he held up the mirror to him. And in every time, whether it was good or bad, the mirror always came out. And it got everyone thinking right away, okay, before I bitch about my teammate, before I bitch about my boss, before I bitch about the customer didn't give me the right whatever, check the mirror. That's most likely your answer, good or bad. That's pretty much it. It's a really cheap thing to do. It's a great thing to do with your athletes. Carry a little pocket mirror. Hey, you won today. Oh, yeah. Hey, then you won today. Good job. Good job with your team. You effed up? That wasn't me. Check the mirror. I like this one. Being in the sports performance world, I think we all see this a lot. People want to be unique. People want to make a name for themselves. I fall into that trap. I'm 41 years old now, but when I got out of college, I was 22 and got into the human performance scene. So I've been in it about 20 years, and there's some dumb shit I've done and thought it was really cool because no one else was doing it. Maybe there's a reason why no one else was doing it, because it was dumb. Don't be different for the sake of being different. And that goes right into being unique. And training and coaching, for instance, in 1999, I wrote an article on single-side training where I was training for the hammer throw at the time. And so, a brief background, I was a collegiate thrower. I'll kind of go into a collegiate thrower, ended up going to 2 Olympic trials in the hammer throw, retired from that in 2004, went into Scottish Highland Games, became professional, went on the circuit for a while, did some powerlifting, Olympic lifting along the way. So I've kind of been in this a minute. But I wrote an article on single-side training. I thought it was so cool because I was like in the professional world, and I'm like Sorinex, and I'm like loading up the bar, and I'm putting plates on one side, and I'm doing cleans and snatches. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be, planar this and anti-rotation that. It was just stupid. Like, why was I putting 2 blues on one side and doing cleans with it? It was a circus trick. I wanted to kind of put some sort of science behind it to make it seem like I was smart and I came up with something, but I'm 22 and I didn't know shit. And I ended up looking stupid and writing an article that I wish I could retract, but it was 19 years ago and I wanted to be different. I wanted to make a name for myself, stand on some dumbass ball and juggling chainsaws or whatever. And how many times have we seen that recently? Don't be that guy or girl. Equipment design. So I've taken that and learned in the design world, because Sorinex, we've been lucky, blessed, or whatever you want to call it, enough forward-looking enough to innovate some of the things that you guys all see in the training world right now. But I also see some of my competitors, and I've been the same guy that just built something because it was different. Like, hey, look, this holds a dumbbell and does. Why? Why are we doing it? We do it really works the way it is. A plate with a bunch of ridges on it. Why not round? Round works great. You can just roll it around. It works. So don't get me down that path. But field strategy. A friend of mine is a former SEAL, and I believe Andy knows him. And he had a great story. He was telling me that the shift, break, punch, and I might get it wrong, but the premise of this was the same. So he was working with some other military groups, and they were doing a maneuver that was basically a flank, and they were like, well, we call it shift, break, punch. So why do you call it shift, break? Well, what's this? It's shift, break, punch. He goes, well, no, shift means one thing, shift fire, break means break, and then punch means, he goes, call it a fucking flank. We've called it a flank since we were 5 years old playing Army in the yard. Why are you changing this? And says, just don't be different to be different. if this is it's a squat. We don't need to call it a bilateral deep knee bend with the proximal hip extension. It's a squat. It's called squat. It's fine. Sorry, I try not to do F-bombs and thing. Sorry. There you go. Evaluate, test, and validate the hypothesis. All this is just be real with yourself. And don't remain dogmatic in the face of alternate information. This is something Brandon Lilly told me in a conversation one day, and I loved it. You could stay on the horse you're on until you realize that horse might be a donkey. Be nice. Help strangers. Hold doors open. Give directions. That's just not being an a-hole in life. And I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm saying it for myself too. A lot of this is reminders for me. And there's a story about the little guy. So 1997 or 98, I was at Arizona State University helping my father put in, I think, 22 power racks at the University for Coach Rich Winter. I was still in college, and there were these two young GAs. So the GAs, they get paid nothing. They get treated like crap. And I shouldn't have said who the coach was. So basically, they were helping us move the equipment that day. And my father was there, and he was running everything. And these two guys were like super pumped up and ready to help. And so at the end of the day, Dad goes, "Hey, I want to make sure I pay all of your guys that helped us." And he goes, No, don't give them shit. He goes, "They're GAs. Treat them like crap. Grind them into the ground. Don't give them anything." Pop's like, "Yeah, those guys worked their asses off." So we gave them $200, $20 an hour, 10 hours of work, and bought them a Subway sandwich. Well, I didn't realize one of them turns out to be Coach Craig Fitzgerald. One of them turns out to be Coach Luke Richardson. Well, Luke Richardson went on to coach at IMG, the Jags, and is currently at the Broncos right now. Coach Fitzgerald went from Maryland, Harvard, South Carolina, Penn State, and the Houston Texans. That $400 and 2 sandwiches made me about $5 million. And I have 2 friends that are some of the best friends that I've had in the coaching world that I come to now 19 years later, and we're still like this. I help them, they help me. We go to each other's houses. Our kids know each other and everything. And Fitz still laughs about it. He goes, $200 in the Subway worked out, didn't it? It worked out for both of us. So it was being nice. Be nice to the little guy. Everyone's nice to the big guy. Be nice to the little guy. Once you're a millionaire, everyone wants to give everything. Be nice to the guy that doesn't have anything. Be respectful. Know and respect your roots. My athletic career was pretty good. It started poorly. I was a walk-on, but I'll go into that later. But be thankful for the lessons and thank those who helped you. So, my roots. This is my father, Bert Sorin, at 15 years old. My dad's 6'5", 255 still at 67 years old, and deadlifted 500 pounds for 49 straight years. I got a good genetic pool. I'm not going to sit here and go, I did all this. No, I started on second, easily, right? Okay, anyone know who this is? It's Al Order, right. First 4-time gold medalist in the Olympics. He was my hero growing up. I was a discus thrower initially. And Al Order, I wrote him a letter when I was 15 years old, and he actually wrote back, which I thought was the coolest thing. He was my favorite athlete, bar none. I didn't care about Michael Jordan. I want to be Al Order. This guy basically broke the Olympic record 4 consecutive Olympics, 2 of them, and he was never favored to win, never won the Olympic trials, and did it twice with severe injuries. And every time was a lifetime best. Absolute ultimate competitor. And he wrote me a letter when I was in high school, and I still have it. And that was one of those pieces that I was like, wow, I could be somebody. Fast forward later, I had Coach Larry Judge, who was an absolute ball buster, should have been in the DDR system, but made me really good because he pushed me really, really hard. And no other coach had ever pushed me at that time. So I could say, yeah, I was X, Y, and Z 4-time this and blah, blah. Yeah, but I had a lot of root system. Now, lastly, I have to thank McDonald's. Because when I got to college, I was very skinny, and I was underweight, and I was one of those guys that are just like, you got to get bigger. So what I figured out, my innovative solution was, I call it free stuffing. So McDonald's closed at 11. I wanted to say Chick-fil-A closed at about 10. And so I had all the fast food places figured out when they closed. And so I'd get there about 5 to 10 minutes beforehand when they're about to throw away all the food. And I'd go in there and kind of flirt with the lady behind because I was skinny then, so I was like, if I could pull it off. So I'd flirt with the lady behind. I was like, yeah, what's up, baby? And yeah, you're not going to eat all those fries, are you? And she's like, oh, come here, sugar. And she'd give me fries. And so I lived on fries and stale burgers. And so I was already eating, but the additional calories I needed to gain 30 pounds in one semester, and my squat went from 320 for a single to 445 for 5, that worked. It worked for me. So don't forget where you came from. The lone wolf. And it's just badass post. The hardest walk you can make is the walk you make alone. Reality is bullshit. It really is. I don't know anyone who's been successful that's been the lone wolf, and if they do, they're not probably being truthful about what their success path was. There's always a coach who took the extra time and taught you. There's always, I'm the lone wolf. Yeah, but you live with mom, right? I mean, she feeds you, and you have a good coach, and you have good genetics. And so just, again, get over yourself, be respectful, and be thankful for those who got you there. And the lone wolf goes hungry. It's part of nature. Be valuable. Now this guy, yeah. This is not a valuable thrower. So at 6'2", 172 pounds, if you know anything about throwing, these numbers are not what you would consider Olympic hopeful, standard, All-American SEC record kind of guy. So this is what I showed up to walk on to University of South Carolina as a thrower. And I was basically the Rudy guy. Like, they were like, oh, he's kind of cute. Like, oh, he shows up. That's neat. Hey, will you go get water for the girls and then come back and you could throw some? Like, no, like zero. Like, actually, that's what they had me do. Because I had a car. They made me pick up all the women throwers and pick them up from their apartment. And then I had to go back to the training room, fill it up with ice, bring the cooler of ice water out there. And then if I did all that, they would let me throw with the people who they wanted to be there. But I'm dumb and I'm not very observant, so I thought, like, hey, this is right on, So fast forward my first semester, I come back after Christmas break, and Coach Greg Kraft, who's now at the University of Arizona. So I'm bebopping in the indoor facility, feeling pretty good about myself. He's like, Sorin. I'm like, yeah, he knows my name. I'm like, all right. And so I'm like, yeah, Coach, I'll come over there. He's like, yeah, you had a good Christmas? I'm like, yeah, Coach, it was great. And he's like, yeah, I got your grades. Really? I said, yeah, what you got, Coach? He's like, yeah, you got an A, and a B, and a C, and a D, and an F. He's like, were you just trying them all out? I was like, yeah, well, it was a little rough, kind of bullshitting some. He's like, and here's probably, if not the best, but the top 3 conversations I've ever had with a person, and it was the first time an adult treated me like an adult, and this was a turning point in my life. And he said, listen, everyone on the team seems to like you. You're a nice enough guy. Some of the girls think you're kind of cute. That's great. I need you to do 2 things on this track team. You need to either throw really effing far and score points at conference. We're in the SEC. We're in big boy conference. You need to throw really far, or you need to get really good grades and bring up the team average. If you can't throw far, I need you to be really smart and basically make up the slack for the guys who can throw far that are dumb, or vice versa. He's like, but that is your value. Currently, you're a detriment to the team. You're a risk. Get your shit together or leave. I'm like 18. I'm like, I've never had an adult talk to me like that, And I'm like, but I'm Bert. Everybody likes me. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. He's like, these are your criteria. Your move. That was one of the biggest decisions in my life. Like, how am I going to do this? So with that, you got to establish the criteria you'll be measured upon. I'm sure Adam, gold medalist in the shot put, how much did that matter in the business world? Wasn't the criteria anymore. I had to realize it as well. I got out of hammer throwing the day after Olympic trials. I failed to make the team. And I went home, and my roommate, he's like, what you going to do today? You want to go fishing? I was like, yeah. He was like, don't you have practice? I'm like, no, I'm not throwing anymore. No, I've thrown for like 10 or 12 years at this point. He goes, all right, cool. Hey, the stripers are schooling out. My value for him as my friend had zero to do with what I thought. I was Bert the hammer thrower. I'm the Olympic hopeful guy. I'm going to be doing cool stuff. It doesn't matter. I had overvalued myself in many ways, and I see people do it in the business world all the time. They overvalue who they are, and that's either going to get you frustrated or fired really fast. It just is, because people are going to get tired of your shit, and this guy who's not showing, or girl that's not showing value, and they think they are. That's when a good manager or an owner has to come to them and say, hey, here's the criteria. Do it or don't. And are you past your window of utility? And a lot of athletes experience that. Your utility of what you are you still a power lifter? Are you still a operator? Are you still, if you're in a different context, your utility window has changed. Realize that. Or you're going to be really frustrated or fired. Be curious. Two most famous curious people in my world, a monkey on a bike and an Italian that liked to paint. And so innovation, in my opinion, only comes from being curious. And Sorinex has led the industry through innovation, and it's generally because we want to see what the next step is. So this is a picture I like. When I look at this picture, what do you see? Somebody raise your hand. What's the first thing you see? What you got, Matt? Perfect. Yes, thank you. Someone less smartass. What do you see?
Wide open field.
Wide open field. Okay, next. Potential. Okay. Opportunity. Is this a flipper? Oh, there you go. Here's where my eye goes. Right there. Because I see all this. I'm not worried about that. What's behind that little rise? That little rise right there. What's on the other end of the field that I can't see? Because all this stuff, I got this. That little guy, don't worry about that little guy. No, this little guy. My eye immediately goes there, and I say, I got to get to that precipice because I want to know what's on the other side of that hill. And I believe if you're curious to look at the world like that, it'll change the way you operate, and it'll change the way you solve problems. Part of being curious is one half of the equation of having a great conversation. And conversation is the way that you have community, is the way that you work with each other. So all conversations need to be candid, and they need to be curious, meaning you have to be safe enough that I can be candid with you to have candid questions, and I get candid answers back, or our relationship really goes nowhere. It's all fluff. It's how's the weather, how's your training doing? I just at this point in my life, I kind of rather not even have those conversations. I talk enough in life. I don't need to add more talking. I want to have people in my life that I can be very candid with them, but also be curious. Rudy, what are you feeling? Adam, what are you feeling? Brandon, how are you doing? And if they don't give me real answers, I'm going to stop asking, because I have too many things to do than just bullshit around the time. Derek Winsky made a great point, I believe 2 years ago, and I love this. It's called Lean In, and it was how he decides if someone is, I believe it was basically someone, if they're worthy to pour into, was when they ask a question and you go to answer, did they lean back and wait for the answer to be fed, or they lean in because they can't wait to get the answer? Body posture is so important, and I loved it. Lean in life. It's something I've carried with me for 2 years since. Be there. So reach out. This is a technique. It's probably one of my biggest hacks that I use. A little bit about my life. Wife, 3 kids, 85 employees, over about 7 or 8 different states. We've known to lead the industry in one way. I have competitors that want my head on a stake. At times, there's some stress. I'm sure you could all have stress in your own ways. How you mitigate that stress and how you take care of that stress is one of the most important things I believe is going to be relative to your success, whether it be strength levels, whether it be competition, whether it be how you treat others around you. If you're super stressed out, you're not going to be your best and almost paralyzes you. So what I've found, this thing I call reach out. So it's a little trick I do. When I'm super stressed to the point of almost panic attack, stop. Sometimes I even actually stop the vehicle or wherever I am. And I think, who are 3 people I know that are potentially more stressed than me? Based on what I know about them, what I saw on their social media, that you just kind of go, I don't know if he's doing so good. I don't know if she's doing so good. Last time I talked to so-and-so, there was just a little bit that just told me something wasn't quite right. I haven't heard from so-and-so in so long. So-and-so told me that this guy was having a hard time. And I just sit there and think for a while and go, who are 3 people that are having a shittier day than me? And immediately I reach out to them and worry about them and say, hey, Rudy, hey, Brandon, what's happening? No, seriously, what's happening? Back to candid and curious. Like and call them. I actually saw, I'm not using these 2, but I just see both of you. No, I kind of saw this and I kind of heard this. Is this really what's going on? And have a 10 or 15 minute candid conversation with someone concerned about their well-being, I've noticed not only strengthens the bond or the relationship, but it completely minimizes my problem, because now I'm outward looking at trying to solve someone else's and I forget about what's going on in my life. It helps me realize my stuff isn't that big of a deal. Other people have bigger things, and now I can be helpful and valuable to them. So that's, if probably one thing you take, try that. It really works. Number 4, be present. Being present is different than being there. Being there is being there for someone else. Being present is having a presence in the room. So if you work for me, you know there's 4 things I always talk about if you contact or connect with the customer in any way. I ask my team 4 things they need to do. If they're out somewhere, they need to perpetuate and connect on the Sorinex brand, develop their personal brand of who they are, learn something that they can make themselves better, so then they could go and teach something to others to make them better. That's why I'm here. Literally these 4 things. Besides, because I like John and he asked me to speak. And that's part of being there for your friends. So that's a piece that I've found in business and in the personal branding and of how you create your livelihood. If you could stay with those 4 tenets every time you come in contact with anyone, life gets pretty neat. So be present. There's some of the Sorinex branded stuff, different icons, Summer Strong, blah, blah, whatever you say. So some of the personal brand. Got Brandon doing his Sorinex Strength Minutes. You got Aaron Osmus, who's running LWA, Lifters with Attitudes, pen and paper strength app. If you don't follow him, you need to. Big Dan McKim, not only is a 4-time World Highland Games champion, but he's come up with these other crazy personas that are his way of branding himself within the industry. And it's been effective. Not only is it fun for him, it shows everyone who these guys are. And they've been very, very effective. They have the customer base now asking them to come in and visit them versus having to come there and knock on the door with a hat in your hand. So another part of being present, you got to buy into what you sell. And Craig Fitzgerald had over his desk after a conversation he said, you better have calluses. And that was his, on a Post-it note, and that was his note to himself on any salesperson that walks in his room. He would literally look at their hand. If they didn't have calluses, you're out. You're not real. You don't have integrity. No amount of words, marketing, or exposure can make up for the way you make people feel face to face. That is enormous. And in today's social media world, people can be really, really good at having a jillion followers. But when I'm this close to you and we're at dinner, by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or an hour, is he going to like me? Am I going to like him? Do we want to connect at a deeper level, or am I just some a-hole with a big beard sitting across from him that's checking my Twitter constantly? Because guess what? In the real world, that shit doesn't work. When you have to really deal with people, it doesn't work. Beyond clothing, Rick Elder, a mentor of mine, brand is 1,000 tiny details pointing to a specific experience. Your daily life are the 1,000 tiny details. That is the specific experience of who you are as a brand. Not to take a dig at anyone with a shit ton of followers, but followers? That guy had a lot of followers. He was an a-hole. Now, if he had, maybe a better PR manager, if he was a little bit more buff, if he had better filters, it might be a little bit different. But, sweet medallion though. Be persistent. You're never out of the fight. Whether real or not, the Lone Survivor movie I enjoyed. And that was a line that I always enjoyed in business. There's been so many times that we should have been out of the fight. In this 38 years that Sorinex has been in business, Dad had to sell his house one time to fund a job. We had a bank tell us they wouldn't give us $100 if we asked for it. Those are some of the better stories. We've had actually competitors send people, hitmen. This literally happened in the 1980s. When a bid was about to go out, another competitor actually sent a hitman to beat my dad up in a bar so he couldn't make it to the bid opening. If you know my dad, you know that didn't go well. Great line by Brandon. Even if you're out of ammo, you got two great fists. And that's the persistence that you need in order to survive in this business or in this world. I told my team 2011, I believe, and I'd always been kind of Dad's helper in helping him kind of live out his portion of the dream. But, he's getting older, and the hard thing is transferring the generation one to the generation two in a family business. And so kind of when I made up my mind to take it and run with the ball, I pulled together my guys and girls and my team and said, okay, here's the thing. In the next 3 years, we're going to blow up. We're going to do everything we dreamed of, and it's going to be amazing. Or I'm going to run this sumbitch in the ground in 2 years. In 3 years, we're going to be there, or in 2 years, we're going to be out of business. At least we could go do other stuff. Who's with me? Everyone's like, yeah, let's do it. And somewhat worked out. Be persistent. Champions just don't do what's on the workout. That's something I learned in my track and field career. If I only did what was on the workout, I would have never caught up. My value was too low to start to only take the prescribed dose. So do the extra stuff. Doesn't have to be extra workouts, extra reps. It might be getting to bed on time, eating the right food, that type of thing. Be purposeful. Know what your purpose is. My purpose, besides the safety and love of my family, is to have extraordinary people and extraordinary experiences. And the extraordinary experiences are a part of the equation is the extraordinary people. So you don't have the experiences without the people. So it all comes back down to that. So as I'm seeing it, the driving force for me to become better, and where some of these other pieces come in with the legendary and all this other stuff, how do I make myself more valuable to you? How do I reach out? How do I make myself someone that go, wow, I want Bert Sorin in my life? Because if you're sitting in this room, you're most likely extraordinary, because not many people would pay money on a weekend to go someplace to get better. So search out those people and go, hey, maybe I could add something to your life if you share some of your life with me, like time, and then we could go do extraordinary stuff. And extraordinary stuff doesn't have to be crazy skydiving, whatever. It can be having a really great conversation and digging into our childhood over coffee. It could be getting to do a deadlift workout with Brandon and Matt 2 days ago. It could be anything, but you just have to see, in my opinion, life through an extraordinary lens. And by always going for the extraordinary, you have to cut out the mundane. And that's been a big thing, because the mundane doesn't excite me really whatsoever. And we talk about, Rudy and a couple of us talk about hashtag thin air. We kind of laugh about, I'm really only interested in breathing the thin air. The stuff that's really hard to get to, the stuff that's extraordinary, and the people that also breathe that air. And that doesn't mean you're famous. That doesn't mean you have followers. That doesn't mean you have money. It's, do you have that look in your eye and that feeling in your heart that you could connect with somebody and really elevate the situation and the context into being something better? Materials don't appreciate and value, experience and relationship do. It's number one. Be capable. You can have all this touchy-feely stuff, but unless you have actual capability, it doesn't matter. You have to have, in my opinion, a tangible skill set that you can offer the world. Capability leads to value and effectiveness. I recently went to Alaska on a trip with Zach Brown. Now, Zach is one of the most capable people I've ever met. Not only is he a great musician, the guy builds knives, he builds jewelry, he runs a camp. It's like, name anything. He could fix the fifth wheel trailer. He could, and you're just like, it's amazing that you're so capable. And he and I sat around the fire talking about, isn't it cool that everyone in Alaska is so freaking capable? His next door neighbor, Richard Koskovich, has become a mentor for us. 67 years old. He's a big game guide. He's a halibut fishing guide. He's a jeweler. He's a hydroponics grower. He's a construction. And I sit with this guy and I want to sit in this rocking chair and have him just tell me things that I could then turn in to extraordinary experiences for other people. Something I noticed when we were in Alaska, the men's rooms don't have mirrors in them. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you look like. It's crazy. In Alaska, they don't give a shit what you look like. Are you capable? Can you work hard? Are you valuable in real life, tangible stuff? I thought it was a cultural difference that really struck me. And obviously some very capable, logging. How many people here could cook a good steak? How many people here could cook a great steak? Okay? That's a capability that was somewhat rare, but talk about a skill set that's amazing to have, or to not kill yourself with a chainsaw. And then if you look at a blacksmith is, in my opinion, one of the most capable people on the planet, at least from a human history standpoint, because they were the ones that made the tools that made the civilizations. They were usually the first person in a civilization, because without them, they had no infrastructure and no tools to go. If you get a chance, talking about capability, Richard Pronicki, this dude, at 51 years old, he moved to Alaska in 1968 and lived by himself till 1999 and videoed it as he literally left with like an axe, a knife, and some stuff that he could put on his back. And every couple months he would get something flown in for supplies, and lived there and made a documentary. You can get it on PBS. It's called Alone in the Wilderness. If you get a chance, it's well worth the $20 to order it, or maybe you can even see it on YouTube. It's absolutely fascinating how capable a person can be when they have the skill set. And so that's just been one of those pieces that I really enjoyed. And it's just an ultimate capability. A couple legendary hacks. So after all that other stuff, if you take nothing else, try epic stuff. That means whatever you thought was too big, if your dream isn't big enough, if your dream isn't so big it scares you, it's not big enough. I'm sure you've heard that. It doesn't have to be a 10-year dream. It might be a 10-minute thing. Hey, you want to go do XYZ? Wow, that sounds crazy. It's probably a thing you might want to go try. Tell great stories. Well, I've laughed. If you could do epic stuff and then tell a great story about it, you can not only transfer your knowledge to others, you could build value, and you could help others go on that same trip with you, and you could become a leader, and you could change the way people see things and how people see the world. And John Welborn, CrossFit football. Well, CrossFitters need to be stronger. Well, it's kind of an epic viral thing that went into CrossFit, And all of a sudden, he told the story about it. There was some marketing behind it. Everyone understood, and it changed the way things were done. And the last for me has been walk through open doors. And I believe it was, who was I talking with? Right there. Yes. Open doors. Open doors. So here's what I mean by that. A lot of people see my life and things that I get to do, and I'm super blessed. I'm in no way saying that I didn't get a great hand. I did. But also what I'm not afraid to do is walk through the open doors, which means if I get an invitation to do something, I generally do it. If that little position, everyone says, you got to smash down the door. Yeah, but a lot of times they're open if you pay attention. Or you let that situation develop, like I was talking to Adam. Sometimes the doors don't look like they're open, and the best action is inaction, and just kind of wait. And all of a sudden, like a good double Dutch, it just kind of opens, and you walk through the door, and you go, well, it didn't take a whole lot of effort. And I just kind of said yes. Hey, do you want to go to the World Championships in Scotland? Well, yeah. Sounds good. Let's do it. You want to speak at the Power Athlete Symposium? Don't really know what I'll talk about, but yeah. Sounds good. Last week I was in New York. Jen Wiederstrom called me. Hey, will you speak at this thing in New York? What do you want it on? Yeah. When do I go? And each time I walk through those open doors, other doors opened. Till after a while you have so many doors, you could write your life. And all of a sudden life gets really amazing and really kind of scary because it has so much potential. So those are some of the things I would say. Thank you. If you have any questions, love to answer them.